Rick, how are you?
I'm doing well, Keith. How are you?
Good, good. Normally, I'm the one who wears the power color red, but you're rocking it today. It looks good on you.
Well, you have a little bit of the red at the bottom, and you have the black at the top. And the thing that I resent always is that I'm trying to make my arms and chest look better, so when I sit here, I don't feel like I'm a midget.
You
so
look great.
thank you for
You're welcome.
intimidating me.
Nice and tall. Nice and tall.
Okay, good. Here-
There you go.
I need a lesson.
There you go.
Okay, cool.
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing great, buddy. How you
Good.
doing?
It's good. Good to see you.
Good to see you,
man. So, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, today I thought we'd talk about something that we all probably have in our lives, but we don't talk about very much, so that's why I want to talk about it. And it's called dealing with regret. Dealing with regret. And here's what I'm thinking. There's so many things that we go through life thinking about, and often it has to do with things that we made mistakes about when we were younger. And we tend to look at the past as a predictor of the future when it isn't at all. And we tend to look back and have regrets and feel down, and it's like the more you think about things that you could have done better, the more weight you take on, the more you slouch, either mentally or actually, and the more difficult it is to deal with your present issues in life, or to have a good time in life, or to self-actualize and do all of the things that you'd like to do. So, dealing with regret is something I think is very important, and we really don't talk about it because in our culture, you don't want to appear to have any regrets. You know, it's this myth that we all are sort of born innocent and free and pristine, and we live our lives exactly like that until we croak. And it's just the opposite. We're born pristine and innocent, and then, you know, maybe a week or two into it, you start going downhill and making all these damn mistakes. So life is full of regret, and it's something that's like not talked about. It's in the closet. We don't want to admit our mistakes or whatever. So I want to start out by asking you, do you have regrets, Keith Jones? and how do you deal with them? Maybe you could talk about a few things that you've done, and I really don't want to focus so much on the problem that created the regret, but how do you deal with that feeling that you did something that you do regret to get over it so that it creates space for a more positive, self-actualized life?
Okay, got it. So, I'll share an actual event that happened in my life, and the focus won't be on that, but it will be how I overcame it or how it became better, so that I can open up, like you said, the space to be more present and be more loving.
Perfect.
Yeah, man, regret is, yeah. If I'm being honest with myself and I'm not letting my ego run the show, then yes, there are times in my life that I have a lot of regret about. And I'm not one to dwell on the past because you can't change it. However, I do like using it or leveraging it as a tool to learn and grow and be my best. And so in that respect, that's how I look at the past in terms of regret. Because I'm not a big believer, I don't believe in blame, shame, guilt at all. Those are useless emotions. They serve no purpose. So this conversation is a little bit different. This conversation is about if you're dealing with feelings of regret, how do you overcome that to create space, like you said, for the best part of you to be able to grow? And one event that comes to mind right on the top is a situation with my brother. So let me just give you a little bit of background. I have a half brother who we grew up together. We lived in the same household. And my stepfather, as I said in previous shows, he struggled with alcoholism. And the way that came out was through physical and verbal abuse. And again, I have nothing but love and compassion for him now, but that was not always the case. Anyway, we had the same mom. My mom is the bomb. She's great.
She is great.
She's fantastic. And we have different fathers. And so I didn't have a close relationship with my biological father, but I lived with my stepfather. And I didn't like anything about this guy, to be honest. I didn't like the way he looked. I didn't like the way he acted. I disliked people that liked him. You know, that's how far this resentment ran, and my story, how deep it was. And so my brother was obviously his offspring, and they looked alike. And my stepfather, my brother was born prematurely, so man, I love my brother so much. So as part of being born prematurely, you know, we have all different features, and my features that I didn't like was my thick lips, you know, and I told a story about how that affected me and how I allowed that to affect me in my life. Well, my brother, you know, he was often made fun of as kids about the shape of his head. And so, and, you know, it was a little bit bigger than, you know, kids his age. And so he took a lot of ribbing and ridicule from other kids. And he would handle it in stride. You know, he'd give it back to them, and he seemed to be okay about it. But because I disliked my stepfather so much, I projected that onto my younger brother. And the way that I treated him was not loving at all. Like, I didn't come to I didn't have his back. A lot of things I didn't do. In your case, you may have a younger sibling that other kids pick on, and you know, or who may not be as smart as you in school, or whatever the case may be, and you don't acknowledge them at school. You kind of like turn your nose away from them or whatever. And at the root of this was two things. I disliked my stepfather, and I cared immensely about other people liking me. So there was one event.
Let me ask you there before you go any further. When you were going through that, did you realize that you were doing that and you were shortchanging your brother in that relationship? Or did you even care about it if you knew?
I didn't realize it. Like, I wasn't conscious that that's what was really, really going on, because, you know, I'm probably like 9 or 10 years old, you know, so some people, you know, they're old souls at a very young age. I wasn't when it came to this. I just knew I was very angry with my stepfather, and I could kind of tell I cared about what other people thought, because I was worried about what I wore to school, if my hair was combed or cut a certain way. So I kind of cared, like, that wasn't for me, that was for other people. I didn't quite make sense of it like that. I was just like, I'm trying to look my best or whatever. And so one day in the 5th grade, my brother was in the 4th grade, we were running home from school. And I would run home from school like well ahead of my brother. You know, one, you would think because, oh, Keith is eager to get home and get to his homework. No, I didn't want to be in that pack of kids with my brother and they would make fun of him. Because they made fun of him, I would make it as a reflection on me. And if, when they got finished making him a target of their ridicule, they would make me a target based on my lips. And so I would just run home from school. So this went on, and then one time we ran home from school, and my feet got tangled up with this other kid. I'll never forget the kid, his name was James. My feet got tangled up with this other kid, and we went down. And we started fighting, okay? And out of nowhere, my brother came out of nowhere, swinging his metal lunchbox and hitting the guy in the head and everything. Get off my brother, leave my brother alone.
Wow.
It was like he was just so, you know, he just came to my aid to rescue me. And you think that I would have got up and been like, man, Kevin, thank you, man. Let's finish this guy off. But that's not how I got up. I got up, and my brother came over to me and said, Keith, are you okay? Are you okay? And I'm like, Kevin, get off me, man. I'm all right. I'm all right. I grabbed my backpack and I ran home, leaving Kevin there. And when I got home, I went to the bathroom, turned the light on, and looked in the mirror. And I was checking to see if I took any, you know, bruises, had any bruises or any cuts or scrapes, to check my face out, because it's a pretty serious fight. And but what I noticed was not any scrapes or anything. I couldn't even look myself in the eyes. And the reason I couldn't is because I realized in that moment that I would not have done the same thing for my brother.
Oh boy.
I care so much about being liked by the kids, not being ridiculed by them, and this whole projection of my stepfather onto my brother, that I would not have defended him the way he did. I turned the light off quickly because I couldn't even stand to see that side of me. But it was at that point I knew that was a side of me that if this went on, this would not be good. And so I just kind of ignored it. And life went on like this for a while. You know, we went to a school, the same high school, and so at the same high school, we rode the school bus, and kids can be cruel on a school bus. Man, if I ever became a school bus driver, there would be no talking on the bus because you're not talking, you're not making fun of anybody.
Yeah, there you go.
So I would just shut all that down, and I would confiscate every smartphone, so you're not posting Facebook posts about other kids on their Snapchats about other kids on the bus. It would just be no bullying and no kind of ridicule of other kids. But anyway, I'm not a school bus driver. So, but other kids would make fun of Kevin, and I would sit as far away from that as possible, again, not being there for him. So fast forward from those years of age 13 and 14, and now I'm an adult, and I'm 37 years old, I'm sitting in this workshop for personal development. And they had an exercise about apologizing for things in your life that were in the way of you being your best, of you growing. And for whatever reason, and to identify people that would benefit from an apology from you. And not just them, but for you to clear the space so you guys could have the possibility of a new relationship. And so there were a bunch of people that were on my list. My stepfather was one, an aunt was another, and my brother. So, there was a girlfriend or two as well. So
that's like 3 more podcasts.
For sure.
Whole inventory of girlfriends.
For sure. And so, my brother. So I called my brother and I said, Kevin, this is Keith. I just want to apologize to you for something. He's like, man, what? What do you want to apologize to me for? And I said, hey, and I retold this event that happened in 5th grade. And I said, man, I pushed you away, and I didn't have your back. You had my back, and I never said thank you. And Kevin, I'm sorry, man, because at that time in my life, I would never have done the same thing for you. And I just want to apologize for not being a good big brother to you. And he said to me, he's like, oh, no, Keith, man, don't worry about it. It's all good, man. We were just kids back then. Like, he's trying to explain. I said, no. Don't let me off the hook with this. I said, it's important, man, because I know in my heart what was there. To you, it may not have come out that way, but I know what was deep inside of me. And I just want to apologize, man, for not showing up for you the way you showed up for me, for not being as courageous and fearless in my love for you. And Rick, man, he just said to me, he said, Keith, man, I love you, man. You're my brother. I mean, and in that moment, everything like melted away. Like, I just had my admiration for this guy who, man, he's made a lot of choices that have landed him in some tough situations throughout his adulthood. And I had so much judgment about the choices he made, that brought hardship to his life. All the judgments are gone. Every kind of trying to fix him to be someone who he wasn't, or to make him, be successful, make different, all that went away. I didn't see someone who I needed to fix or somebody who wasn't good enough. I saw the definition of unconditional love. And I became clear that my whole life and my whole childhood, this guy had been my teacher.
Yeah.
He had been my teacher, you know what I'm saying? So
Totally got it.
if I had a regret, that would have been my regret, is that I didn't love him the way that he loved me. And so from that point on, I made a commitment that I would love him. And so from that day, from 2007 to the present, whenever something happens and he's in a scrape or this is going on, it's never a conversation about, you should have done this. It's all about, man, I'm here for you if you need me, man. I love you, man. I mean, I love you. Whatever you need, you call me. I got your back. That's the only space that I'm holding for him. And it's been his example that has helped me grow. Like, so that would be my regret.
We're dealing with the regret is this thing that is the message that we want to get across. And the dealing with the regret was twofold for you. One, it was the acknowledgement that you had done something that you let yourself down and you let him down on. And secondly, there was an apology to clear out that regret, so that even though you can't change the event, you can change the way you now go forward with that new relationship with that person, with these new feelings, acknowledging what had happened. And overlaid on both of those is the notion of being vulnerable, which is so damn difficult for us as humans. We want to build up this feeling that we are always right and that there's nothing that we've ever done that's been a problem. But you have to be vulnerable and willing to say, I screwed up on that. I really hurt you. I really did a terrible, terrible thing. And own it. And own it. And let the other person know that you're aware of that. And let the other person know that that was something that you completely have your own responsibility for. They did nothing to contribute to it. I would add one other thing. That's a very powerful share, Keith, and I appreciate you doing that and being vulnerable right here in the studio for something that has obvious meaning and has never gone away for you. Appreciate that. One other component to this is that I think when we're dealing with regret and we take steps like Keith did with his brother to tell the person that was wronged that you're apologizing. The other component to that is to not have any expectation. In Keith's example, it worked out beautifully because he had a loving brother. And the brother let him off the hook and tried to hush him up and say, you know, you didn't do anything wrong, I love you, everything's cool, no worries. Well, what happens when you have the opposite effect? What happens when you receive the opposite effect? Maybe the person on the other side says, yeah, you were a jerk, man. And you really, and click, and hangs up on you. Well, that brings up the point of doing this exercise for yourself, not for them.
Exactly.
And you can't have any expectation of forgiveness. That forgiveness has already come from yourself. You're forgiving yourself by doing the acknowledgement of the regret and by apologizing to the other person. That's the forgiveness for yourself. The other person reaction is totally independent of that. They could come back and say, you're a jerk, I never want to talk to you again, out of my life. Totally cool.
Absolutely.
If your expectation is, I'm going to do this great apology and be a big man about it, and then as a footnote in your head you're thinking, and then they'll really think I'm cool, you're not going to get any benefit out of it. You have to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to put it out there, to confront rejection and loss due to your own problem that you created. You have to be willing to confront that and lose. But if you have the expectation that you're going to get something from it other than the cleanse and the opening that comes from acknowledging a mistake and a regret and letting it go, you're mistaken.
You know, one of the things that I also learned too through that process with my brother, and I was very fortunate that that he just was, you know, he was so loving in his response about it, and he accepted my apology. He didn't even want it, but he accepted it, and because he didn't think it was necessary. Is that I realized that if someone had come to me who I thought had wronged me, I would not have given them the opportunity to apologize to me. And if I would have put them through going through that exercise of apology, I would make them pay for it. I'd like, that apology didn't quite hit it. Like, what about this? You have no idea how much you hurt me or how much this affected me. Like, I'd make them relive it all over again. And with my brother, the way he was so gracious, if I'd accepted it at all, but my brother was so gracious, which is true to his character, that I've learned that when somebody apologizes to me, if they feel compelled to, first of all, I don't need an apology, but if they feel compelled to, then I will let them say what they need to say, and I won't try to dress it up or tell them how to make it better. And I promise to create the space so they can do so. You know, I promise to do that and accept it. So, because my brother did that, that was a gift he gave me. It was a gift. You know, not just being instructive with his example on how to be unconditionally loving, but also how to allow me the space to say what I needed to say so that I could heal and grow.
Well, and as a receiver of the apology, I think your obligation is, as you say, to give the other person the full and complete opportunity to do whatever they need for their own development. But also, I think it's important not to rehash and not to ask for more than anything you're given. If you're given something from the heart, you accept it, and you move on. What this does is it creates a clearing, and that allows fertile ground for pursuing that relationship or fertile ground for ending it. Either way, there's no point in rehashing. It's like trying to argue about the outcome of World War II or the Peloponnesian War. You know, it's done. It's in the history books. You're not going to be able to change that. So rehashing it all, revisiting it all, reconstructing it all, and usually with the idea of making yourself look better, isn't going to cut it. It's not. It undoes that whole exercise of being vulnerable, of apologizing, of going forward, and it undoes the exercise of receiving in a full and loving heart what the other person needs to do. Either the receiver or the giver in that circumstance of that single regret. There are two parts to it, and both the giver of the apology and the receiver of the apology have to come from a place where this is complete for both, and now we move on. Now it's forward. It's not going back and rehashing the
Absolutely.
past.
You know, do you have an example of regret?
Man, there's so many. I mean, I think I'll mail mine in. I'll mail mine in, and you could all judge me, and then never watch the show again. I have lots of them, Keith, but none as poignant as the one that you shared today. I think my lessons have come. The thing I'm most disappointed in myself has to do with patterns, things where I never learned. I had regret, but I never connected the dots. They were all single, isolated incidents when they weren't at all.
Right.
It was a character flaw that I needed to address, and I never did until it finally smacked me in the head. And then I realized the downside and how dysfunctional it made me, and how unhappy and how much I had suffered from it. And the vulnerability was hard, but it sure as hell wasn't as hard as suffering from the problems that created those same blind spots that caused me to do these things that created regret over and over.
Can you think of one?
Well, I think, can think of many. Probably adultery. I cheated on my first wife. And I did that because I felt that I was in the peak of my career. I was successful. I felt I had a right to do it because I was bored. That I was earning the money and she wasn't. I mean, there are all kinds of silly, selfish things that I did, and I did it secretly, and then I did it more than once, and I, in a way, perversely enjoyed it, the secrecy part of it. Now that's a long time ago, that's almost 40 years ago, but it still bothers me to this day. But I did that, and when I said pattern, I did that over and over in that marriage, and it cost me a woman who loved me and a life that was very, very good. Anyway, I think that once the apology has been made and once we've moved on, then you continue to have that lesson in your mind, and that's a good thing, even though it's painful.
Yeah, man, thank you for sharing that, man. You know, we've known each other a long time, and I think what the show gives us is an opportunity to be open and vulnerable. And, you know, every time we sit down, you know, as many conversations that we've had, the topic inspires us to share something that the other person has never heard before.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
what you did for me.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and that's what you just did for me by sharing that, you know, with your first marriage. And
Well, and
thank you for that.
You're welcome, but more importantly, she was completely innocent. There was nothing that she had done. I mean, you could argue that, you know, I felt like I wasn't appreciated, or I felt like, you know, she had done something wrong. She had an affair first, and that made me want to get even. It wasn't anything that was provoked by it. It makes it even worse. I had a beautiful situation, and it was my own egotistical need to feel validated by another woman, or a series of women, and it was completely stupid and unjustified and juvenile.
Right. Yeah, no, it's powerful, man, that you can share that. I know so many people that, including myself, man, that live with these secrets, and we act as if we haven't done anything wrong until we're really forced to look at it. And had it not been for this seminar, I wouldn't have looked at that with my brother. Or and hadn't been for you and Tim, I wouldn't have looked at my own behavior with not being faithful in relationships. I would not have, or if I hadn't gotten found out,
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the things that helps us too. I think there's one thing to be said. I mean, I don't have anything against somebody being promiscuous. I don't have any judgment about
Right.
all of that. I do have judgment about breaking commitment, and that's what I did. There's a lot involved. This is a very socially charged subject, but the point is that we all go through mistakes. This was this was the equivalent of nuclear war in a relationship.
Right.
It's like dropping a nuclear bomb and then asking for forgiveness. And of course, it didn't work that way. I lost the marriage. But my point is that all of these vulnerabilities have a payoff if you can allow yourself to totally divest from self and develop a consciousness that's more about your best self rather than your ego self.
And I think if you don't deal with the regret or face the breaking of commitment, whether it's commitment to yourself to be healthy and or to be loving to those around you, whatever the commitment may be, if you don't do that, then the regret is going to be there. I guess and for some people it was for me, it's a silent killer.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a silent killer because you don't face it. Like with my brother, I couldn't look at the mirror. I had to turn the light off and walk out of the bathroom, so I couldn't face it, and that stayed with me for another 25 years. But it was always there, slowly eroding any kind of integrity, any kind that I had with myself, the relationship with myself, and more what started to grow in me was caring more and more what people thought, being liked, people thinking highly of me, just this fake sense of self just continued to grow and dominate my life. And what was interesting about it is that I could get away with it thinking that it wasn't there because I was doing well in my career. I was making lots of money, had a great big house, fancy car, and I was dating some pretty awesome people. So I was able to get away with it until you can't get away with it anymore. Something gives. It's happening for all of us. So if you're playing this game and it's going to, it can't continue that way. It's going to end, and unless you get in front of it, the cost is going to be great. And it was for me. I went through a lot of suffering when I finally came to grips with it, and I'm just grateful that the seminar happened, because before that there was a lot of suffering in relationships along the way, and a lot of pain along the way with whenever there was a financial challenge in my life, and not wanting other people to find out, because man, if they find out that I'm struggling financially, or I'm about to lose my house, or this is like this whole like fake self that in life that I created to where I couldn't be my real self and share and be vulnerable. It was all mounting and mounting and mounting and mounting. And had it not been for that seminar, I don't even want to think about where this train would have ended.
Well, let's end on a positive note, I think, for the show, and that is that we all have to take heart in the fact that we're human. We all have to take heart in the fact that we make mistakes and that we sometimes hurt other people, sometimes intentionally and sometimes unintentionally. In my case, totally intentionally, for my own egotistical needs that were unjustified. And the way to deal with all of that is to first recognize that you're not alone, that everybody does it, this is part of what happens. And that doesn't justify it, but it just helps you understand that you're part of a whole and part of an imperfect life force. And the second thing is, when someone else is hurt because of you, we have to acknowledge in our hearts that we are the cause of that. take action, which usually amounts to an apology, with an opportunity to correct whatever we've done. In my case, the apology was accepted, but the correction couldn't occur because there was too much heartache, too much hurt, too many examples of it for it to survive. And that was the correct result, totally. And then lastly, to be vulnerable in a way where you don't have any expectation of the other person saying to you, it was okay. It wasn't okay, even if they say it was. And so the expectation that you come to have, to want them to forgive you, you cannot have. If forgiveness happens, terrific, you're lucky. If it doesn't, too bad, you earned it.
That's right. And yeah, I'll say that. But the if there is a goal or objective here, it's just, you know, restore integrity to who you are.
Yeah. Authenticity.
Yep, authenticity at your core, and exercises in the vulnerability and freedom that comes with being vulnerable. And you learn how to create space so something new can grow there, even if that relationship has run its course. It opens you up to be more self-realized in your true self in future relationships. But if you don't clean that business up, then that part of you is coming into your next relationship, and it will always be a part of your life, and you will get no rest and peace.
And once you've taken all of the action that you can take with an open and loving heart, you have to let it go, and you can't let the regret run your life.
Exactly.
That's a chapter that's closed. It's a new day. Let's not make the same mistake.
Absolutely. Rick,
I love you, baby.
It was quite the show, man.
Oh, man.
And thank you for letting me share.
Oh, listen, you are unbelievable with your vulnerability, and I really appreciate that. I'm the beneficiary, as all the viewers are, of that kind heart of yours.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing too.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
I love you, man.
I love you too.
Thank you.